To creating a multi-generational home, a safe place for grandparents, parents, and children to all live together. But where does one start to create a multi-generational home? For the answers, join us for a live, interactive virtual seminar with Fritzi Grodion, CEO of Household Guardians, and Jack Crocker, President of Classic Home Improvements, as they share their insights. The event is Wednesday, March 31st from noon to 1 p.m. Register now at readytoremodel.com.
Good morning, San Diego. My name's Nicole, and I just realized in the intro that I forgot to change the time. It's actually supposed to be 11 o'clock, believe it or not. We did have to make a change to our schedule, so I apologize, but I did let the folks that had pre-registered know. So let's just talk about what we're doing here today. My name's Nicole, and I brought to you San Diego Spotlight. This is a platform for us to bring local small businesses to you and educate you on topics that are important to you. Today, we're bringing it to you live because every once in a while, it really feels like it needs to be a live conversation. And we want you to be able to communicate with our experts. So I don't know what platform you're on today. You could be on Roku, you could be on Fire TV, you could be on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I don't know where you're at. Fred is broadcasting this. But wherever you are, please feel free to type in any questions that you have. I've got my cell phone. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at questions that are being fed to me from Fred, from you. That way the experts can answer them for you. So again, this is live. Nobody's going to see you or hear you if you type in that question into the chat, so you can ask your questions anonymously. That's okay. I'm going to introduce to you the folks that I have here are experts. Jack Crocker is the owner of several construction companies here in San Diego. He also happens to be my husband, and so he's here for that kind of support too. But he's also the sponsor of San Diego Spotlight. He's celebrating 10 years in business, and so as a gift back to the community, we are bringing other experts to the table for you to speak with. And that expert today is Fritzi Grodion. Did I say it right?
Yes, fabulous.
Okay, good.
Fabulous. I'm going to have to skip my whole opening now because you said it right. You know, my funny opening is done. I may have to throw it in at the end just to do it.
Perfect, perfect. So we were talking today about multi-generational housing. What is it? What does it mean? Who does it? Why do they do it? And Fritzi, I was going to go on and on about all these great accomplishments that she's had. And then when we were practicing, she kind of got all red and she said, don't do that. So now I'm just going to make her do it.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to say on my behalf, or I'll just jump right in?
I'm just going to have you jump right in. So
Okay.
Fritzi, I know that you were Educator of the Year. I know that you were, you've gotten so many different awards. I know that you've gotten speaker. What are all the awards that you've gotten for your speaking?
Okay.
In regards to aging in place and universal design.
All right. We'll start with that segment.
Perfect.
We'll start with that segment. Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you, Jack, for sponsoring, and thank you, Nicole, for the lovely introduction and getting my name right. So for the audience, I am an instructor for the National Association of Home Builders, and I teach the certification for aging in place specialists. So that's a course for remodelers, designers, healthcare professionals, folks from lots of industries who want to learn more about the market itself, design concepts, and we do case studies together. So I do that one, and I also teach a universal design course. My background coming into this space came from many years in New York, and my accent may come out when I get started fast, where I did environmental consulting for over 20 years. So I come from a variety of workspaces, residential, commercial, industrial, hazardous materials, lots of that kind of stuff. In the middle of the time I was doing that, I had a senior move management company, which at the time, I have to confess, I thought I invented the industry in 2001. It turns out it was really invented 2 years before, but I did that for 10 years and moved about 1,000 families from their homes. Many of them had been in their homes for 40 years or more, into communities, mostly into assisted living. This was all in the 2000s, into assisted living or in with family or to other parts of the country. And at the time, I knew that people didn't want to move. I mean, I can tell you 3 people who were excited to move to assisted living at that
Oh,
time.
I would want to.
And so that I knew that wherever my encore career was going to be, it was going to be an aging in place and helping people stay safely in their home for as long as makes sense for them. When I started Household Guardians here in San Diego, I tried, Forever Home as a tagline, and it's disingenuous because we can't make promises about people and forever.
Right.
But we can certainly make the interim between now and forever work better for them. And so that was really my shift in the move to California to aging in place, although I have to confess I did do asbestos and lead-based paint work and training when I first came here too, just as an aside.
I feel like you landed in a better spot.
But this is a spot that I really believe the breadth of folks that we can help in so many ways is broader. So that's a little bit about where I am.
Okay, so I've heard universal design, I've heard aging in place, I've heard multi-generational housing. Are they all the same thing?
No.
Okay, can you help us understand? Can you help us understand
Yes.
a little bit?
Yeah, pretty briefly too. Universal design, this is my favorite analogy, so y'all are getting my favorite analogy. Universal design is like a band that's been playing in the garage for about 30 years. They've been making great music, the neighbors love them. Now they're a YouTube sensation, and all of a sudden they're a rock star. Right? So universal design as a concept was developed over 30 years ago.
Okay.
And it's been out and part of the design world since then. So it's all about making spaces work for all people, all ages, all abilities,
Okay,
period. So that anything that we do, and an easy example is a motion activated faucet, right? You can be tall, you can be short, you can be left-handed, right-handed, young, old, you can have one hand, and you can still get water. So that's universal design really in a nutshell.
okay,
And aging in place has evolved because people are, guess what? Aging in place. And now some of the design concepts, some of them are universal design. Some of them are more specific designs like adaptations.
okay,
Some of them are purely accessible because people have requirements that are purely accessible based on their challenges right now.
I understand. So wheelchair.
So like wheelchair
Okay, well,
accessibility.
okay.
The other 2 design categories are visitable, which also ties into, and there are now standards for that, which means making the ground floor of your home visitable by people of all ages and abilities.
Okay,
So that's the 0-step entrance,
okay,
as an example. And the newest one is livable design, which really is like universal design. They've taken visitable with all their 6 or 7 requirements, and they've added a couple more for livable. But it's all part of the same space. And I think that's been the big shift now toward really just looking at it really in a more universal approach to living in our homes. So multi-generational simply means, okay, there's more than one generation inside that home.
Makes sense.
So now how do we take what the multi-generational looks like and add these other design concepts and execute on those so that people can be multi-generational there. And it extends from being just visitable to being livable.
So for example, we've got grandkids, and whenever they come, I have to make sure that I've got the plugs and the electrical sockets and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're okay with the children as well as the grandparents, and then anything in between.
Right, because we're all, other than those of us who are both there and there, most of us are in between.
Yeah,
And,
except for when you break both feet like I do.
oh dear. And she's back in high heels. For
I
those
am.
who can't see it, okay, thank you for that. So, yeah, and I think that's part of where we're going. So you asked about multi-generational, and Jack and I had a chance to just briefly talk about this, but the National Association of Realtors has come out with now why there's been an even bigger shift toward it.
Really?
So the first driver is people bringing aging parents in. After this last year, families have made decisions that living in a community, living in an assisted living, may not have the benefits that they thought it did. There's been social isolation there, been safety issues, health issues, etc. So now, how can we integrate mom or dad or both into our home?
Mhm.
And another reason too is people combining households to save money.
I've heard a lot of that happening right now.
Yeah, and we've oftentimes, at least from my generation, we tease about having young adults move back home, right? But they were forced to for college, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, you shipped them all to college, and guess what? Last year, they all showed up again, right? Because college was closed. Hello, we've got some nodding over here, right? And now, for those, they're not like, oh, college is open, I'm leaving again. Like, no, this worked out, right? This worked out great. So now, even if they transition into a professional life, the transition out into the first-time home buyer market,
Mhm.
nearly non-existent.
Well, especially in
Right.
San Diego, $500,000 houses just for a starter home.
Yeah, so, this is a chance to save money
Mhm.
and be able to build up enough of a nest egg to make that change with a professional with some time, in a career. And Jack, you had another great point about how the cost savings works for families looking to do even wealth transfer and some of those other ways.
Yeah, we see that all the time where you've got, parents want to begin the wealth transfer to their kids. And to your point, it's so expensive to buy a first home. They might have a huge house in Arizona and their kids are in San Diego and they want to see the grandkids. So one thing they can do is sell their home, take that equity and do an addition or an ADU or invest in the home with their child who's the adult. And that then becomes an asset that, at some point will pass on to the children naturally without any sort of taxing or anything, because they'll own the home where that investment was made. So that happens all the time too.
Yeah.
So like I know in my personal family, I've got an aging grandfather who's got cancer. He's sadly not going to be with us very much longer. And grandma's going to sell the house and she's going to move in with my parents. And they're considering right now, what do they do? Do they add an ADU in the back? Do they buy a manufactured home? Do they add on and go up and they go upstairs and grandma stays downstairs? So when you've got a family who's in that position where they have to consider their options, where do you go to look at the pros and cons to all of these? Do you have any resources that you can? I know you wrote a book.
Yeah, I did write a book. Actually, here's my book, Grace and Grit. And I brought this to actually give to you as a thank you at the end.
Thank you.
So that book really talks to the challenges of different kinds of families making the decision about what to do next. But in terms of starting for your example, the first place that I start, because now it's my niche, is really home safety. Like how does your current home look in terms of how the folks? So for grandma moving in, is that going to be a good space for her?
Okay.
And again, if it's multi-story, we were talking about how do we use different flex spaces, right? How do we, and that goes back also to now we have lots of folks home. So the first step is to really analyze what they have.
Okay.
And then go from there and kind of make that list. Or what are the things? Are there any accommodations? Does grandma have any physical challenges or health challenges now? If not, all of the changes really can simply be the universal changes that will work for everybody, no matter whether grandma's living with them or not. So there, if there is a bedroom on the main floor, then, you know, or if there isn't,
Mhm.
let's say there isn't, so are people using the dining room? I mean, that's, you must have seen lots of different kinds of changes for folks in spaces.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially in this last year. You know, what used to be the dining room is now the office and the classroom and the dining room, right?
Right,
So, you know, like you said, there's lots of different ways to use the space, and the more people that are in the space are all going to be trying to use it at the same time. So you need to be able to have like different areas where people can do stuff so that you're not always on top of each other.
So for like in my case, can I kind of walk through that house, and can you give me a couple of like tips of things, like maybe you guys can say you should really make sure you consider, I don't know, let's see. I'm walking up to the house. I'm walking up to my parents' house, and what things do I need to look out for to make sure that it's safe for my grandma to move in there when I'm considering, let's see what I can do with the existing space. Am I looking at, I know it's a first story house,
right.
and I'm walking up to the front door right now, and I can see there's a little step. What are our options for steps? Do we take them down to a 0? Do we put slopes? What are some of our options? And do I need to be concerned about something like that?
Okay, so if there's lighting,
Lighting, okay, didn't even
Right.
consider lighting.
so let's walk up to the house.
Okay,
Let's walk up to the house in the daylight. So we're just kind of looking at the pathway. Is it smooth? Are there cracks? What's the surface of it?
Mhm.
And we're walking up to that first step.
Okay.
Right? Now, I had an example of 3 front doors, as a matter of fact,
Oh,
to show you, which is concrete walkway, concrete entrance, bluestone walkway, bluestone entrance, right? And then concrete walkway, bluestone entrance, just because we want to be able to see where that step is. So you can do it with lighting,
okay,
for actually the 3 houses that I have in the photograph, and you may be able to show it to folks later.
yeah, I'll plug and play it later.
Actually, I ended up putting motion sensor lights for the bluestone because I was so nervous about the woman living there. I
Yeah.
just went at night, I put the lights there, I left, I didn't even let her know who did it.
Mhm.
But I couldn't bear to see that woman go in and out of her house without knowing that, you know, a complete stranger coming to the house would trip over her for you.
Yeah,
So that's where you start, the pathway, the lights.
okay,
Are you gonna need a railing? Are you gonna need like a railing on the outside of the house, or just a little rail to hang on to for that step going in?
gotcha, okay.
And then as you go into the front door, how does the lighting happen? Is there an overhead light? Is the doorbell lighted?
Mhm.
Is there a motion sensor
I was just
light?
gonna ask about motion sensors. Are there a lot of motion sensors going into homes right now?
Yeah,
There?
people are definitely, I mean, you can do with the smart home, you can have cameras, you can have where when you open the garage door, all the other lights that you need for the entrance automatically come on just by entering your garage door code.
Oh.
There's a lot of ways with smart home technology to sort of take care of your pathway.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
And there are simple battery operated motion sensor lights too,
Oh,
that you can mount on the side of the house and just focus the light at the lock set, so you'll be able to see that.
yeah,
So that's, we've just kind of gotten up to the front door. Is there a doormat? Is it one of those high raffia ones with a fancy design on it?
Mhm.
Is it low? Is it non-slip,
yeah.
right? What's the door handle like? Do you push the door open? Do you turn a knob? Should you have a levered handle?
So many details to.
We're not
think
even in the
about.
front door yet, girl. Right? We are not even in the front door. Also, a little table
Mhm.
by the front door to put your packages on as you go in. So, because if you just put that stuff down, then you can manage the lock. And there are smart locks, remote locks, fob locks, all of those kinds of things. There's a new one that's a levered handle that you can also push to release the latch.
Ah.
So okay, so now we've gotten there,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, we're in the front door.
we almost are in the front door. We haven't turned the handle and gone in yet, okay? Because now we're looking at that threshold between the entryway
Mhm.
and the door. So is that little bit of a thing a tripping hazard or not?
That's right, because you do you're not lifting your legs up as high when you're getting older, so.
Right, so there, that can be just a little tiny transitions ramp that you can, do that integrates. You could do something with the way the mat works in there.
Are those
So-
custom, like the doors, the thresholds?
No,
No?
no.
Okay. I don't-
It depends when you order the door, you can get low threshold doors, which would
I
be a
honestly
special
didn't know that
order.
was an option.
Yeah.
Interesting, okay.
All right, so now we've figured out whether we can open the knob, we've got a levered handle, we've got lights, we've gotten over the threshold. Okay, so now we're in the house. All
Now we're in
right.
the house and now we're in the living room, because I'm like, you haven't seen my house, have you?
No, I haven't.
Why is she staring at me like that?
Because I just got you up to the front door now.
So we walk into the front door and their house walks straight into the living area.
Okay,
They don't have a fireplace or anything. It's a pretty open space. And then it backs into their kitchen to the left-hand side.
mhm,
And in the kitchen space, so she's shorter, she's 5 foot, nothing. So I know she can't get up super high, but
right.
what other kind of considerations do I need to think about in the kitchen space for aging in place?
Lighting,
Lighting again.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes. We need, those of us who are over 65
Mhm.
need 30% more light than you do.
Really?
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
I knew that you lost color, like some color would fade off into different
Yeah,
now, but
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. And we also, as we get even older than me,
Mhm.
right, we also lose our peripheral vision very, very gradually.
Okay.
So when we're in our 20s, our peripheral vision goes way back, like we can see the world.
Yeah.
That's because we're invincible at
I can
20.
literally see him out of the corner of my eye.
Right, okay, but when you're 75, your ability to see that is going to have slowly diminished and you won't know that it has.
Mhm.
You won't know that you're missing that.
Really?
Yes.
That's
So
interesting.
that even, that's why you may have to turn your head further
Mhm.
to actually see something. And but because it's been gentle and it's happened to you over a period of time, you don't know that.
Mhm.
And that's another reason why lighting is so important.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember actually you did a remodel for somebody who I think had cancer at one point. I'm not sure, but you had opened up some windows in the house for them. Do you remember that? It was going to a beautiful house, by the way. I'll show you guys a picture another time. But I wonder if that's why, because I think he was wanting just some sunshine because he was bedridden most of the time.
Right,
So
right,
that's interesting.
right.
Mhm.
So different kinds of lighting in the kitchen, what would you recommend for folks for the different
Skylights.
areas?
Well, I always, in any design, whether it's aging in place, maybe it's universal design is what I'm doing,
Mhm.
but I always tell people, put as much lighting or more lighting than you think you need, because you can always put it on dimmers and you don't have to turn it all on. So in a kitchen specifically, what you want to watch for is you don't want to have all the light behind you, because then you cast your own shadow. And the harder it is to see, the older you get, the harder it is to see, and those shadows can really get dangerous when you're chopping and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll have lights above the fridge, I'll have lights near all the entrances, of course, all the way through the middle, but then we'll do under counter lights, which people think are night lights, and they are, but they're also for, so you can see what's directly in front of you. So for example, when you're chopping, the light behind you is throwing a shadow, but the light in front of you is making it nice and bright. We'll do a brighter light, so it might be too glaring for overhead, but a bright light just gives you lots of ability to see. So those are some of the things we consider in all projects, but specifically with universal design and aging in place, lots of light is really important.
Okay.
Plus, it makes your kitchen look beautiful. Makes all the colors pop.
There you go. There you go. But on the other side of that now, you've got to think about reflection, shiny surfaces, where your work areas are, and contrast. So contrast can be very important so that you know where the edge is. So
okay.
the contrast, so that if your countertop and your floor are contrast,
Mhm.
then you'll know that that's the edge,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so that can be a big help right there, just
Oh,
as,
just the little things that
and-
you don't think of.
and from the design point of view. So again, so we're in the kitchen. What's easy for grandma to use in terms of the kitchen sink? Do you have a levered handle,
Mhm.
right? you have kitchen knobs, right? So maybe a levered handle on the kitchen sink with the gooseneck,
Okay.
maybe an automated faucet.
Oh yeah, Kohler has that new one that's touchless. It's really neat. I just saw.
Yeah, and now with the smart home, right, you can tell the kitchen faucet, I need 1 cup of water at 120 degrees.
Come on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
neat, so neat.
Yeah.
So, okay, I wouldn't have to worry about the bar seating that they've got. There's no concerns there, right?
Well, you didn't mention that they had.
Yeah,
bar
well,
seating.
she's got, yeah, in the kitchen, there's like a little bar height, 3-chair seating area.
Yeah, if she doesn't have, as long as, but check the seats,
Mhm.
check the, make sure everything is firm, balanced,
Mhm.
right? Maybe she would be comfortable if she had one of those that had the little arms on it,
Mhm.
just to be able to hop up on it
So,
more easily,
When you're looking at these
especially since she's
houses-
5 feet.
Yeah, she's so sorry, Grandma.
Yeah,
She's so
no.
short.
That's great. That's,
I was gonna ask you something about, what was it? Shoot, I just lost my train of thought. But it was about the bar. Oh, with the edge. Any concerns about the countertops there with edges on the bars? I know there's different edges and whatnot. They're not gonna affect Grandma anyhow.
I don't, it depends on what kind of
Imagine.
edge in your.
Well, I'm
edges, I
thinking
mean,
like the edge of the countertop and the bar. Like there's no. I can't think of
Are there
anything.
corners?
There's corners, yeah,
Yeah. I
but they're
mean-
rounded.
Oh, perfect. She's good.
Okay. So when you go in there and you're looking at houses, because you mentioned furniture too, are you looking at you're looking at furniture as well?
Most of the time on the home safety side, I'm only looking at furniture. I'm looking at furniture 2 ways. One, to see that it's stable if a person is having trouble getting up and down.
Yeah.
Like a chair like this with arms,
Mhm.
fabulous. But also for distance.
Mhm.
Because sometimes folks need a little more room to walk around the coffee table,
Mhm.
to walk between the chairs. And so, and we don't want any extension cords, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't analyze furniture
Okay,
per se,
That kind of shocked me.
but when you mentioned it, it's like, it's one of those things that you don't think about. But if all of a sudden one of those stools wasn't steady, if it lost one of those little foot things on the bottom and
Mhm.
it was just enough to throw somebody off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to my parents' house. Now we go into the hallway,
Okay,
and it's 2 bedrooms on that side and 1 little bathroom, and it's a tub. It's got two vanities, standard, 2 vanity bathroom, toilet, tub, shower. Would I need to gut that thing out and do a 0-edge shower? I've heard of those.
it depends on grandma's capabilities now and what your folks want to do. But curbless showers are a great solution for everybody.
Is that what they're called, curbless?
Curbless, and,
Yeah.
and Jack can tell you more about why and.
Yeah, why? I know that's for wheelchairs, but I don't know much else. Are there any other considerations in that shower space or the tub space?
Well, it just depends on, like you said, their ability to get in and out. So when you have a shower, you have to step up. When you have a tub, you have to step up and over the tub to get in, which isn't so hard, but it's a lot harder to come out because now you're wet and you're going to get onto the floor. So sometimes people can't lift their legs. It's a tripping hazard. In a lot of homes, there's sliding shower doors. So if somebody needs assistance in the tub, you have to fight the track and fight the shower door. So it really depends on if people need assistance. Sometimes you have to take those out, put a curtain in. Then the next thing would be like showers, and those are going to have a lot smaller of a curb. And that's probably 99% of all showers are going to have those curbs. And they're typically not a big deal because you have to enter the shower anyway, and a small little 3-inch step isn't that big of a deal because it's also only 1 inch on the other side. And even if you're in a wheelchair, you typically have to do a transfer at some point anyway. So people
Right.
think, if I need a wheelchair, I want to roll a wheelchair in. Well, if you do that, then the wheelchair gets wet, right? And then what? At some point, you're gonna have to trade chairs.
Yeah.
So you can go to the edge of the shower, do a transfer and have a wet chair or a seat or something like that and do assistance. If you're using a walker and you want to do stuff by yourself, or if you have a wet chair, then you can go with the 0-edge. The nice thing with the 0-edge is you can roll right in, you can shuffle right in. There's nothing to trip over. and you can enter the shower. They can be beautiful, by the way, because your
Yeah.
bathroom floor can carry right on into the shower. The downsides are they're very expensive in an existing home. On a second story, they get even more tricky to do for all kinds of construction reasons. And sometimes the shower doors, if the sweep's too hard, they're hard to work, or if they're too loose, they can get wet. So there's kind of pros and cons to both, but they're definitely beautiful. They're very elegant looking, and they're the most versatile of the bunch.
So I know that flooring is a big deal when you're aging in place, and universal design as well.
Mhm.
I've slipped and fallen on tiles before. Are there specific tiles for the shower space that you should purchase when considering moving an elderly person into the home?
There's a slip resistance rating,
Okay.
and the standard was 0.6 of the coefficient of friction, which sounds like I really have a clue. There's no coefficient of friction measuring device. Like there's a stud finder that finds, right? There's no, so it comes on the tile. So the answer is yes, you want slip resistance in your tiles. If you've got the little tiny 1-inch tiles with a bunch of grout, you've achieved that.
Okay.
And so if you're choosing a tile, the slip resistance will be on there.
Okay.
As well. I think that's the easiest way to do it. And there are some products that you can actually use on top of existing tiles to make the surface itself more slip resistant
Mhm.
as an interim
Mhm.
while you're planning to do the remodel or whatever. So you could make that bathroom a little bit safer for grandma now
Mhm.
while you're looking and organizing how it is that you want to do, what the next steps are going to be. And that's where you go through the decision about, do we want a curved shower, curbless shower,
Mhm.
and those other decisions about the space. So you can make the space safer.
Mhm.
One of my personal soapboxes, you just stand on it, is grab bars.
Okay.
Grab bars are the new seat belts,
Mhm.
right? Those of us who were old enough when seat belts were invented, right? Locked them behind us, sat on them, stuffed them down the sides. At the time, we believed as consumers that it was safer to be thrown from your
I
car,
remember that.
right, than put on a seatbelt,
Yeah.
right?
My parents were pissed.
Absolutely, absolutely, right. But the same way now, that's what grab bars and safety bars are for us. So in your parents' home, they're not gonna do the tub, they're not gonna do the bathroom before grandma moves in, a vertical grab bar by the entrance as she steps in. And again, to Jack's point, they are beautiful. You know, matte black. I mean, you can get all of these finishes,
Yeah,
old
it
world
doesn't have to look like you're
bronze.
walking into a hospital anymore.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And they can be intimate towel bars, soap dishes, toilet paper holders,
What?
all of them that all match
Uh-huh.
whatever design you choose. Those can be grab bars. I
Interesting.
mean, they're designed to be that,
Yeah.
and to integrate in the design. So when you go into the bathroom, you think, oh, this is really cool. Look, they've got all the latest
Mhm.
whatever, and it's safer.
Yeah.
Well, and I would add to that too. What I've seen a lot is in a bathroom, and again, this goes to universal design. You don't have to be 80 to need to do these things.
Mhm.
Everyone should do them. To speak to the slip resistant tile, the easiest way that I mean, there's coefficients efficient and all that, but basically, if you just think of this, you don't want any shiny tile where it can get wet, because shiny tile is slippery when it's wet. And I don't care if you're 10 or 100, you're going to slip. So you want to have something that's got a matte finish. The more sort of leathery finish it is, the more resistant it's going to be. Like you were saying, smaller tile has more grout. That obviously is very grippy.
Mhm.
So that's good. And then I would also say in the bathrooms that you should have, even if you don't want to put them in because you're still in the seatbelt behind your back phase, I always recommend when you're remodeling a bathroom, put backing in for it. And then before we cover it up, just put a tape measure out, take a picture. And then
Ah.
that way you've got wood to screw it to later when you need it, because a grab bar is no good if it's just screwed into the drywall, because it's actually worse, because you're going to trust it and you're going to hurt yourself. And the other thing I tell people is to, if you don't put in towel bars, put in a grab bar to use as a towel bar. Because I can't tell you how many times I've seen, to your point, making it a visitable space. Grandpa comes over, he starts to slip. What's the first thing you do? You grab the the towel bar, which is not designed for false sense of security, you're hitting the floor.
Ugh.
And they're not hospital grab bars with knurled corners and stuff like you've seen. They really can, I would have to tell you, they're a grab bar for you to even notice.
Really?
And so I would say put them in
Cool.
and just make them part of your space, and nobody will know the difference, and it's safer.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, honestly. Showers, handheld showers, I know are a thing, and I can visualize one of the bathrooms that you remodeled with your company, and it had one when you were walking out of the shower, and it had, so one vertical and it had one horizontal. Was that for walking in and out of the shower, I suppose? And then one for if you're in the shower and just need to get your balance? How many are recommended in this space?
Are you talking about grab bars or showers?
Grab bars in the shower, sorry.
Gotcha. Well, I'll let you answer that. That's your specialty.
Typically two,
Typically two? Okay.
right? And a horizontal and a vertical.
Okay.
And if a client or someone has a very specific concern or challenge, then you can do more. But people will sometimes ask for diagonal.
No.
And diagonal only allows you to hold on to it while you slide down. You know, so,
Got it.
yeah, and so the real recommendation is horizontal and vertical.
Okay.
But if someone wants one, like by a toilet area, then the style and how you mount that really depends truly, and this is going to be very graphic for the audience, how somebody gets up and down off the toilet.
Okay.
Because some people will pull themselves up and some people will push themselves off,
Mhm.
depends on their strength. And
How
their-
weird, because it's something I've never thought of, but that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, trust me, girl, I know a lot of things you've never thought of. Remember, we just think about how long it took us to get in the front door
I
of your
know.
parents' house, right? Right?
Right, yeah. So, okay, that's interesting. So we've gone through like a bathroom and the kitchen space, and you were talking about the dining room being a dining room and office and all that. And I'm thinking, well, mom's not using her office anymore. She's retired. So maybe we can just add a little kitchenette in the back and call it, can I call that an ADU? If I just added a kitchenette to a bedroom?
Well, an EDU is a technical term that
Oh.
the cities use, and
Mhm.
so there's going to be specific requirements for it to be considered an ADU.
Mm-hmm.
But an ADU, it stands for accessory dwelling unit. So whether you use a technical term or whether you say, is this a space where mom could have a small kitchen, two completely separate.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking multi-generational housing, slap in a little kitchen, spread up the house. You know, is that how you people do it? I don't know. What are you saying? How are people creating two households in one space?
Well, that's a really long conversation, and it really, what it really comes down
Seems like you
to,
can't just throw in a box in the back.
no, you could. I don't know if mom would like it.
Grandma wouldn't.
But what it really comes down to, and what we try to talk about when people are, and this is important, right? When you're first beginning the idea or the thought process of bringing a parent in, or whether you're worried about your own future and you're trying to do aging in place for yourself, the important thing is design and how do you use the space? What's your procession like in the mornings? How do you do things? What don't you need as much as what do you need? In a multi-generational house, I think that we've done a lot of them. And one of the most important aspects of that is you want to have common areas and common spaces, because the whole idea of multi-generational is that grandma gets to hang out with the grandkids.
Okay.
And you get to see your mom and dad, and your mom and dad get to see you, and all those sorts of things. That's very important, right? It could even be that you need to share meals together because maybe someone doesn't have the ability to cook. And that could, by the way, mean that both parents are working and the grandparents are doing the cooking. It doesn't mean inability to cook, right? So you may want to have shared kitchen and shared eating. However, no matter how much you love your family, you're going to want time to separate a little bit.
Right.
And so what I've seen a lot is that you've got common spaces where everybody can meet as a family, but you've got retreats around the house where people can literally retreat, go quietly read a book. Kids can go quietly do their homework or play video games that are not so quiet so that people can be quiet in the main part of the house. And so as we talk through those needs and what your specific situation is, then we're going to know how to address it. One of the biggest things where we're merging two families together is space, because grandma and grandpa have a 3,000 square foot house. The kids managed to use the entire house they had before grandma and grandma showed up. So you have to merge the space. but you also have 3,000 square feet of furniture.
Mm.
And you've got 50 years of photo albums and stuff that you did in first grade that you can't believe your mom still had. Those all have to go somewhere. So storage and furniture usage is a big, big part of planning this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about, and I know that you teach aging, what is it called, the certification?
Certified Aging in Place Specialist, the CAPS.
CAPS, yeah.
Yes.
So can you tell us about that? And are all interior designers required to get that certification, or is it a specialty, and what is it?
CAPS is a certification offered by National Home Builders, and it's a choice. It's a designation. It's a 3-day process. We look at marketing and selling. We look at the market in different segmentation other than just demographics, which for me, when I took the course myself before I began to teach it, was the biggest light bulb moment.
Okay.
And then there's days on the designs, these universal design concepts, and then specific for the other design categories we talked about before, and then case studies, implementation, some more construction best practices are taught.
Okay.
So remodelers who have been doing one kind of remodeling can pick up some information about this niche. This area is not going away. And I have had students in my class who only do a certain kind of building or a certain kind of remodeling. And even as we come out of this economy, even as there are other changes, we're still going to be doing bathroom and kitchen remodels.
Right.
And bathroom remodels are going to be among the leading places that we move in the next couple of years, especially.
Yeah.
And again, it's where all those universal design features come into play. You know, the same way if you, and this is a very strange analogy, but I was just thinking about the toilet seat covers.
Yeah.
That have the one for kids built in. If you,
Yeah.
okay, well, for me, I was like shocked. I didn't have any grandkids, so maybe in the future. Anyway, but the idea that built into that cover was the potty seat. That was clearly, for me, that was a universal design piece.
Yeah.
You know, things like that we do are going to work really for everybody, and having those features.
So if somebody's looking to bring in and create a multi-generational home, do they reach out to you to help them design a space that's going to work for everybody? How does that, or do they want to look for a certified person? Like, what's the benefit to the homeowner?
For a person with the CAPS training or the universal design training, we know that just adds a vocabulary and a framework for asking the right questions.
Okay.
So Jack already asks the right questions, but I know your team is also participating and getting these designations as well, because it just builds out the conversation and the look at how we ask those questions. And maybe there are more questions that we're going to need to be asking. So that's, but people from all kinds of professions, healthcare professionals take the course as well, so that they can I have lots of occupational therapists take the class so that they can understand the construction side a little bit better, because so many times as occupational therapists, they make a recommendation like the grab bar should go here, and you know, this needs to go here and this needs to go here. And then a remodeler will just shake their heads and go, you got no idea what you're talking about. I can't do that. And they don't understand why they get pushback. So the class really gives chance for people from different disciplines to actually work together in the classroom and learn from each other as well.
Yeah.
So that's one place to start. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know that it's people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And we don't know what to, it's like me, I am stumbling a little bit because I'm like, I just don't understand that world. I'm coming into it. I mean, we're careening towards it. So I need to start understanding it.
Right. Right.
So I
right.
really appreciate that.
Right.
I'm trying to think, oh, you know, I haven't even checked to see if there was any questions yet. I'm so sorry. I get so into my own little head when I'm doing these things. Let's see.
Okay, so while you're looking that up, the other thing another place to start is with the home safety assessment.
Okay.
So that's that's through Household Guardians. That's one of the things that I'll do is go into someone's home, and I'm invited in by older adults. I'm invited in by their children who are concerned and see some changes in mom and dad.
Mhm.
And then that gives us also a place to start. So it's not necessarily I'm going right to the remodel. It's
Mhm.
like, what are the safety things? Like thinking about your folks' house and grandma moving in,
Mhm.
right? They may want to look down the road at how we can integrate her living with us the best way we can.
Mhm.
But right up front, if somebody looks at the house and tells us the lighting things, the door handle, some of those easy things that we can do that would keep grandma safe
Mhm.
while the family is working on that plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if I'm gonna put you on the spot right here.
Okay.
Assessments like that, do they run thousands and thousands of dollars? Are they,
No.
okay, okay. Well, I mean, I don't know, do you know?
No. I have a questionnaire. It's about 240 points.
Okay,
And so, yes, it's a couple $100.
okay, very
Yeah.
affordable, very worth it.
It's, yeah, and then where I also go to is recommending, especially here in the county, local resources
Okay.
for folks who, and then if it looks like they're gonna move right away, then finding, companies like Classic Home to be able to really take somebody right away and move them. Like if they know right away, we're moving from, yes, non-slip mats would be a good idea, but what we know already, we need a bathroom remodel, we need some exterior work done, we need those things right away, then I get a chance to refer to folks to actually be able to work with the clients. And sometimes I give the clients some basic ideas, give them a checklist of questions to ask the contractors,
Mhm.
Go to CLSB and check their licenses, that kind of thing.
Right.
As well. So, it helps me build our community too. And that's been one of the things that's helped by being a member of NARI.
Yeah,
locally.
Nari's great. You've been part of Nari for 5 to 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
10 years.
Mhm.
Twice as long as me.
I want to, they put the link to your book in the chat. So if you guys want to purchase her book, which is Grace
Oh.
and Grit,
Oh,
tell us a
thank
little
you.
bit about how this came to be really quick.
Okay, really quick. I moved to California. I didn't know anybody. I started to network with every possible networking organization I could find online,
Mhm.
right? So I go to networking meetings and what do you say? Like, I'm an asbestos person? No, I just came here from New York. No, that doesn't work, right?
Mhm.
So I'm writing a book because on my laptop, there was a folder marked book and I had my ideas in there.
Okay.
So I'm about 6 or 7 months into this whole networking thing and I'm telling people, yeah, hi Jack, nice to meet you. What do you do for Oh, well, I'm writing a book. Okay, well, I wasn't. Okay, every time I opened my laptop, I had a folder marked book, right? And then I said, this is disingenuous. So I better either write the book or delete the folder from my laptop. I gotta have another line at networking. So I just took some time because I couldn't delete it. I couldn't let the stories go.
Yeah.
And a woman from Northern California said to me, if you have 10 chapters, just write the book. So that's what I did. I had 10 chapters. And one of my favorite parts of the book actually is the table of contents.
Really?
Because chapter 1, don't talk to me, don't talk to my daughter.
Oh.
Chapter 3, I can still see the photographs in my mind. It was a client who was blind and her family just presumed that she was not able to really, and we sat with the photo albums and she touched the pictures and she could tell me who the people were in the pictures
Oh my
because she knew those
goodness.
photo albums so long. The kids don't want our stuff. She's just like her father, but I could divorce him. I don't want to live another day around all these old people. Hide the painting in the elevator. My brother's coming.
Oh my gosh.
So these are real stories.
Mhm.
Most of the names are changed.
Mhm.
In the Hide the Painting one, the man who worked for me at the time and actually hid the painting, which was huge, like 8 feet tall. It was an enormous thing that we got into this elevator. And in the story, I say he was in there 15 minutes, but he told me it was really 25 that I left him in this elevator with this painting it was this huge painting from the 1800s,
Yeah.
an original oil of, I don't know. Anyway, so Lou's name is not changed in the book. because I just couldn't change his name. He had to get real credit for holding it up. So these stories are really about families, generational considerations, and I wrote them so that people in different generations would see that the other person is right too,
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
and
That's
ways to
great.
have the conversation. And the last chapter is about my mom and her decision to stay home to the end of her life. And so in the prologue, you meet my son and how I got into senior move management. And in the end, you meet him again in the epilogue when he and I are having a conversation about 20 years later about what that looks like and,
That is
and
really
why I did the
neat.
work. Yeah.
I'm gonna read that tonight, actually. I'm pretty excited to read that.
Yeah, it's a quick read, believe me. Believe me, the chapters will go like this. And it's always fun for me to find out from folks what their favorite chapter was.
Mhm.
Like a lot of people like the hide the painting one.
Yeah.
But I'll just tell you one more
Yeah,
quick
please.
story. So the woman who was my copy editor, a good friend of my mom, she's in her 80s in Vista. And she'd been an English professor. So I said to her, Miss Evelyn, would you read my book and put in commas or whatever? So she took the manuscript in the 3-ring binder, right, over to her house, and she didn't bring it back, and she didn't bring it back. I was like, what the hell, must be terrible. So she finally comes back with it, and she goes, there was only about 3 places, but she said, I got lost in the stories. And there's a story in there about a woman, Lois, who is flamboyant. She's in her 80s. She's moving into assisted living. Her son is in his 50s, and he's the one who demonstrates the grace because her boyfriend is younger than her son.
Mhm.
And so apparently, yeah, her boyfriend was younger than her son. So, but she was just a sculptor, a painter. She was just like, well, my copy editor had a younger sister whose name was Lois. Now, at the time, my copy editor was 83 and the sister was 80, right? For 80 years, she had tried to get Lois to be a sensible kid, right? Her younger sister was never sensible. And when she read that chapter, it gave her pause and she and her sister reconnected. She said,
Aw.
I began to feel some compassion for why I've been trying to make her behave for 80 years and she's just never going to do it. And they got back
Wow.
together.
That's really neat.
Yeah. So you don't know, you
Yeah.
know, you don't know. I wrote a blog 6 years ago about grab bars, and a man that I went to high school with put grab bars in his mother's shower in Tennessee. And I thought it was 2 paragraphs, right? And there's a grandma in Tennessee who saved her.
Nice.
So those are my big moments.
I love it. Thank you for sharing. So, folks, we're actually out of time. I'm going to go ahead and we'll respond to your guys' questions separately from here. Really quick, if you could, Fritzy, to this camera right here.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk. How can people get a hold of you? What's the name of your company?
Okay, locally, I'm at Household Guardians. So Fritzy, Fritzi, at householdguardians.com. And also I do the other training and home safety work through Age Safe America. So Fritzy at Age Safe America or Household Guardians, either one is a great way to get hold of me.
Okay, fantastic. Jack,
Thank you.
anything you want to add before we head out?
No, I think this is great. If you guys have any concerns or questions about this sort of thing, it always is good to ask because for everything you're thinking of, there's probably 5 more things that you should consider. So get somebody involved that does this all the time and you'll get really good input, stuff you haven't even considered before.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.